Forget everything you thought you understood about New York real estate stability. In 2025, the foundation of the Empire State is fracturing in ways that haven't been seen since the Great Recession devastated markets nationwide. From the Hudson Valley to Long Island, from Buffalo to Brooklyn, the market that once symbolized financial power and social prestige is now experiencing its sharpest, most sustained decline in over a decade. Mortgage payments have soared to levels that price out the middle class entirely. Insurance costs are climbing at rates that make ownership untenable, and families are evacuating faster than new buyers can possibly absorb the inventory flooding the market. The institutional investors have vanished. The bidding wars that defined the pandemic era have evaporated completely, and buyer confidence has collapsed across every price segment. What we're witnessing isn't a temporary correction that will self-resolve in a few quarters. This is structural deterioration that reveals fundamental weaknesses in one of America's most expensive housing markets. This breakdown exposes the 10 cities across New York where home prices are falling fastest in 2025 and what these accelerating declines mean for the rest of America's overheated markets. Rochester once represented the quiet success story of upstate New York, a place where affordability and economic opportunity seem to genuinely coexist in rare balance. Families from across the state migrated here pursuing a simpler existence, lower housing costs, and steady employment in stable industries. But in 2025, that foundational sense of security and comfort is rapidly fading into uncertainty. According to recent comprehensive housing data from major property analytics platforms, Rochester's home values are displaying the first undeniable signs of sustained cooling after years of pandemic-era gains that drove prices to unsustainable levels. The median home value currently hovers near $230,000, reflecting a slowdown that superficially appears modest but masks considerably deeper structural weakness beneath the surface statistics. Listings that once vanished within 48 hours are now languishing on the market for weeks without serious offers. Sellers are systematically trimming asking prices, often multiple times. And the once frenzied competition among buyers has quieted into widespread hesitation and wait-and-see mentality. The shift has been driven by multiple converging factors that compound each other's impact. Mortgage rates have stabilized at persistently high levels, keeping monthly payment obligations well above what most local median-income households can comfortably afford long-term. Property taxes remain crushingly heavy, among the highest in the nation relative to home values. And critically, wage growth has not remotely kept pace with rising living costs across essential categories like food, energy, and healthcare. While Rochester's economy remains anchored by hospitals, universities, and specialized optics manufacturers, these industries are not immune to inflation pressures or the hiring freezes spreading across corporate America. Builders who overextended dramatically during the pandemic construction boom are now struggling desperately to clear accumulated inventory. New subdivisions in nearby towns like Greece, Irondequoit, and Webster are offering aggressive closing cost credits, completely free upgrades, and substantial reduced prices just to attract any qualified buyers. What was once universally perceived as a symbol of upstate stability has transformed into a market characterized by cautious optimism at best and growing pessimism at worst. Even longtime residents who bought decades ago are feeling unprecedented financial pressure. Energy bills have climbed substantially. Insurance premiums are rising faster than inflation, and basic maintenance costs are escalating beyond previous projections. For younger buyers who once looked north to escape downstate prices and find homeownership opportunity, Rochester no longer feels like the guaranteed safe bet it represented just 2 years ago. Yet this isn't a chaotic collapse or panic-driven crash. It's a fundamental recalibration of values. Market experts characterize this as the market moving toward genuine balance after an unsustainable boom driven by artificial pandemic conditions. For buyers with patience, strong finances, and long-term horizons, opportunity absolutely still exists at these corrected price levels. But the lesson emerging clearly is this: in 2025, even the most historically dependable housing markets can shift dramatically and quickly. Rochester now stands as a cautionary reminder that perceived stability in real estate is never actually permanent. Albany, the political and administrative heart of New York, once symbolized unshakable stability in an otherwise turbulent state. For decades, its housing market operated predictably, remained modestly priced relative to other metros, and was supported by the steady paychecks and job security of state government workers. But in 2025, even the capital's calm exterior is beginning to crack under economic pressure. Recent comprehensive housing reports demonstrate that median home prices across the Albany metropolitan area have slipped close to 9% compared with last summer's peak. Inventory levels have surged by nearly double year over year, and homes that used to sell within 2 weeks of listing now sit stagnant for more than 40 days on average. The slowdown isn't dramatic or headline-grabbing, but it's consistent and accelerating. Every neighborhood from the historic blocks downtown to the sprawling suburban edges of Colony and Clifton Park is experiencing the chill. The underlying reasons run considerably deeper than elevated interest rates alone. Property taxes have climbed again this year, pushing total monthly ownership costs beyond what many first-time buyers can realistically manage even with stable employment. Insurance premiums have spiked substantially as climate-related risk models are reassessed and repriced across the Northeast, driving up homeowner costs even for inland cities like Albany that were previously considered low risk. Simultaneously, wage growth within the public sector has stagnated completely, and hiring freezes have left thousands of government employees uncertain about future income trajectory and job security. Developers who rushed aggressively to meet pandemic-era migration and demand are now holding substantial unsold inventory. Apartment conversions that were confidently expected to fill instantly are taking months to lease, often at reduced rates. Even longtime real estate investors, drawn specifically by the city's long-standing reputation for steady, predictable returns, are beginning to pause new acquisitions and reassess existing holdings. Market experts describe Albany's current shift as a soft correction rather than a crash, emphasizing the gradual nature of the decline. But the underlying psychology has fundamentally changed. Buyers are deliberately waiting for further price reductions. Sellers are increasingly willing to negotiate aggressively, and lenders are systematically tightening qualification requirements. For decades, government employment was widely thought to effectively shield Albany from broader economic storms and downturns. Yet in 2025, that safety net feels considerably thinner and less reliable than conventional wisdom assumed. Stability no longer automatically guarantees security in real estate markets, and affordability, once Albany's calling card, has paradoxically become the new source of uncertainty as prices fall and confidence erodes. Albany still projects pride with its impressive historic architecture and civic institutional presence. But its housing market has definitively joined the growing list of New York cities, discovering that even apparently steady ground can quietly give way when foundational economic conditions shift. Queens has always functioned as the essential bridge between New York City's towering ambition and its rapidly disappearing affordability. A place where working families, first-time buyers, and new immigrant communities could still realistically find a foothold in the city that never sleeps, that never stops, that never compromises. But in 2025, that delicate balance is breaking completely under unsustainable pressure. The borough's housing market is experiencing genuine, measurable distress. Median home prices across Queens have fallen nearly 12% compared with last year's levels according to combined Zillow and StreetEasy data analysis. Listing inventory has surged to the highest levels witnessed since 2015, creating a buyer's market that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. And homes that once sold within days of listing, often above asking price, now sit for months without serious offers. The slowdown began quietly in specific neighborhoods but has spread rapidly across the entire borough. Areas like Forest Hills, Astoria, and Flushing, long considered functionally immune to downturns due to their desirability and limited supply, are now experiencing steady price cuts ranging from $50,000 to $80,000 per property. The luxury condominium boom concentrated near Long Island City has stalled completely as buyers back out of pre-construction purchase agreements, leaving developers offering deep discounts and aggressive incentives just to move units and generate cash flow. Market experts point to a perfect storm of converging economic pressures that compound each other. Mortgage rates remain stubbornly elevated near 7%. insurance and monthly maintenance costs in co-ops and condominiums have climbed sharply due to aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance coming due. And after years of sustained population inflow that drove demand, Queens is now experiencing net population loss as residents relocate to cheaper suburban markets in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Carolinas. Even rental markets, long considered Queens' economic safety net and stabilizing force, are softening noticeably. Landlords in traditionally strong rental neighborhoods like Ridgewood and Jackson Heights report substantially longer vacancy periods and dramatically smaller profit margins. As more tenants leave for cheaper alternatives, rental income conversions and price reductions are becoming increasingly common strategies. The borough's remarkable diversity and direct proximity to Manhattan's employment centers remain its greatest inherent strengths and competitive advantages. But the economic strain is cutting deep across all demographic segments. The middle class that historically kept Queens thriving and stable is being systematically priced out of ownership entirely. Meanwhile, investors who once viewed Queens as a reliable cash flow market are pulling back capital and reassessing risk. For decades, Queens represented where everyday New Yorkers came to build tangible stability: a backyard, a brownstone, a secure future. But in 2025, the market data tells a considerably harder truth. The borough that once stood proudly as the city's gateway to home ownership opportunity is now caught in a vice between rising ownership costs and falling buyer confidence. Just north of New York City proper, Yonkers once symbolized achievable hope for affordability within practical reach of Manhattan's employment opportunities. For years, the city thrived almost entirely on geographic proximity. The underlying logic was elegantly simple: live here affordably, work in Manhattan lucratively, and enjoy full city access without enduring the city's crushing price premium. But in 2025, that foundational logic is unraveling at accelerating speed. Office attendance across the greater New York metropolitan area remains stuck below 60% of pre-pandemic levels. And the permanent shift to hybrid work arrangements has fundamentally reshaped the entire commuter belt economy. The very attribute that once gave Yonkers its primary competitive advantage, its strategic location relative to Manhattan, now actively works against it. Homeowners who confidently counted on a steady, predictable flow of Manhattan-bound workers discovering Yonkers are now watching demand evaporate in real time. Across Westchester County broadly, price reductions between 15 and 20% have become standard operating procedure rather than exceptional circumstances. Condominiums and brownstones that once attracted multiple competing offers are now sitting unsold for months despite aggressive price cuts. In luxury buildings dramatically overlooking the Hudson River, rent-to-own deals and seller financing are becoming increasingly common. These are highly unusual tactics in what was recently one of the region's most competitive and overheated markets. Developers who constructed high-end residential towers during the pandemic boom are struggling desperately to fill units at any price point. Exorbitant homeowners association fees, escalating maintenance costs, and persistently high property taxes are deterring potential buyers across all income segments. Meanwhile, affordability has declined precipitously for middle-class families, leaving the market uncomfortably squeezed between luxury oversupply and collapsing middle-market demand. The city's growing identity crisis is becoming impossible to ignore. Yonkers was aggressively branded and marketed as the next Brooklyn, positioned as an emerging creative hub with waterfront charm and authentic character. But as urban migration patterns slow dramatically and interest rates remain elevated, that carefully constructed narrative is rapidly losing credibility and momentum. Even institutional investors are retreating noticeably, increasingly wary of high carrying costs and substantially slower resale timelines that destroy investment returns. Yet the city still holds genuine promise and inherent advantages. Its location remains objectively strong. Its access to commuter transit infrastructure is excellent, and its genuinely diverse neighborhoods provide authentic character. These remain solid foundations for eventual recovery. But for now, in this moment, Yonkers is learning a harsh, expensive truth about modern real estate economics. When the economic center of gravity shifts decisively away from centralized office work, the entire commuter-dependent ecosystem must adapt radically or risk being left behind completely. In 2025, Yonkers is no longer desperately chasing the Manhattan dream that defined it. It's searching uncertainly for a new identity entirely its own. Manhattan stands at the top of this analysis, the ultimate symbol of global wealth concentration and American economic ambition. For generations, this narrow island has defined what it means to succeed in real estate, a place where prices seem to only move upward, where artificial scarcity itself created and sustained value. But in 2025, even the world's most iconic, most expensive housing market is in undeniable retreat. After a brief, shallow rebound from pandemic lows, Manhattan is confronting another significant correction. According to combined data from StreetEasy and Zillow, median home prices have fallen close to 20% since 2023 peaks, marking one of the steepest sustained drops in more than a decade. The luxury segment, which historically drove the entire market upward, is now leading the decline downward. The underlying math tells the complete story. With interest rates still hovering near 7%, the monthly payment obligation on a $1 million apartment now exceeds $8,000, even before mandatory taxes and maintenance fees. The result is brutally simple: dramatically fewer qualified buyers, substantially longer listing periods, and deeper, more desperate price cuts. Inventory has climbed by more than 50% compared to last year, and open houses in Soho, Tribeca, and the Upper East Side are witnessing a mere fraction of the traffic they generated previously. The international demand that once reliably fueled Manhattan's luxury skyscraper developments has also faded substantially. Wealth inflows from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East have slowed as global economies tighten and geopolitical tensions rise. Foreign investors who once treated Manhattan condominiums like stable currency and safe haven assets are staying away entirely, leaving entire high-profile developments struggling desperately to close sales and generate revenue. Even rental demand, long considered functionally indestructible in Manhattan, is showing unmistakable cracks. Thousands of high-end units constructed between 2020 and 2023 remain stubbornly empty. Landlords are offering multiple months of free rent and steep concessions just to compete for tenants. Manhattan's skyline still gleams, timeless and unmatched, but the numbers beneath that iconic skyline tell a profoundly different story. The market that once defined success is now confronting gravity,